What's up, Formula One fans? It's James from the Formula One Bros. Now that we have officially completed the winter shakedown and we are about a week and a half out from the winter test in Bahrain, let's talk about it. Now with the shakedown, or really any winter test, there are three aspects that you want to take a look at. And all of this data combined can give you somewhat of an idea, not the whole picture, but somewhat of an idea of how your season could go as a Formula One team. So let's talk about those three things. Obviously, the biggest and most important aspect is mileage. How many laps were you able to run? That's really, really important. Less important is lap time. I think of the three, lap time is the least important. And I'll talk about that in a sec. And then you also have reliability issues or lack thereof. So let's talk about first mileage. Mileage is important, and that coupled with your reliability issues can tell a lot about how your season is going to go. So the thing that looks really, really good are teams that have a lot of miles completed on the car throughout the course of the test. In this shakedown, there were three teams that put in a ton of miles in the car. That was Mercedes, Ferrari, and surprisingly, Haas. Those were the three teams with the most amount of miles run throughout the winter test. And all three of those teams had no technical issues. Well, with the exception of Haas, they had one minor issue, but that was resolved very quickly. So across those three teams, you had very few technical issues. McLaren also had really, really strong testing. They were able to get a good amount of miles on their car as well. They had, again, like Haas, one small minor issue, but again, that was resolved really, really quickly. So four of those teams had really, really strong mileage, coupled with not a lot of reliability issues, with Mercedes and Ferrari having no reliability issues. On the flip side of that, you had Aston Martin, which had very few laps run, which they were only able to manage 66 laps. And on their first outing, they only did 4 before Lance Stroll had to stop the car on the track. So you compare that with how Mercedes and Ferrari did, where they were able to put the most amount of laps out of any other team in the shakedown with no reliability issues. That's not going to feel very good for Aston Martin. Now, a lot can change going into the winter test and the first race of the season, but it's not going to be great for the Aston Martin team. The next thing that you want to look at, really, it doesn't pay a whole lot, but it can be somewhat of an indicator, is lap time. This is by far definitely not the most important thing to look at. Throughout the course of the winter testing, running, Mercedes did seem like they were the fastest, even though they were dethroned last minute by Lewis Hamilton with the fastest lap. But among the testing, the three fastest cars looked to be Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren. Red Bull is in the mix there too. But again, lap times aren't the most important thing to look out for. What can be a really good indicator is how all three of these things fit. If you are a team and you have high mileage on your car throughout the winter testing, like Mercedes and Ferrari, with little to no reliability issues, and you were quick, that can be a really, really good omen going into the season. Now, again, this is just a winter test. It wasn't even the official winter test. It was just the shakedown going into the winter test. So a lot of teams were trying to run many different programs. Each team had their own set of programs that they wanted to run. And each team looked different with that. So their goals were different. How they ran was different. And so what some teams may look see as successful, other teams may not be as successful, or what some teams deem as not quite as successful, some may be like, yeah, cool, this is great. All in all, we got a lot of really great data throughout this shakedown, but take all of this with a grain of salt. Each team has about 2 weeks until the winter testing, and I can guarantee you each team is going to be going into their factory, into the warehouses, everything, and putting in a lot of hours to develop the cars. Several teams, including Ferrari, have already said that they're going to be bringing upgrades to the first race in Melbourne. So a lot is going to be done between now and the winter test, and then a lot is going to be done between the winter test and Melbourne. So where we stand now, may be nowhere near close to where we stand at the end of the first race weekend in Melbourne.